For our Dante's Inferno video game project, basically the main character, Dante, is who the player is going to play. And the objective of the game is to obviously reach the end of the levels and get out of hell. So there's a total 9 levels, or circles. And basically, each level, the player has to defeat the boss character of the circle, so the main center, and as you progress throughout the levels it gets harder. So once you defeat one boss of one level, you get experience points, which you can or skill points, which you can use towards upgrading your character, and so that they will be able to get stronger and have more powers, or updated powers. Okay, basically the first level is Limbo, and since Limbo is not really the residents didn't do anything specifically wrong, we kind of envisioned the first level to be more of a tutorial for the players so that they can get used to the controls. So we chose for the modern day residents, Gandhi and Dalai Lama, because they're both virtuous non-Christians. So their punishment is that they're living in castle with the 7 gates, which is why there's 7 gates, symbolizing the 7 virtues. And it kind of creates a scenario where there's never enough, because they're just stuck in limbo, never actually quite reaching hell, but never quite reaching actual hell either.
Okay, so the second circle is represented by the people overcome by lust. So the circle is for the lustful, and here there are actually 3 types of residents: the child sex offenders, the sex offenders, and the lustful. So for the child sex offender, you see Woody Allen because of the allegations and evidence of his relations toward his adoptive daughter, and then you see Bill Cosby because he got sentenced to state prison and fined because of his past sexual assault cases. And you see someone representing just the lustful in general, and that's Dominic Zygaitis, and that's actually, he's better known as Dirty Dom, and he is a social media kind of influencer, and he has just a title, and he's just known for being lustful. And yeah, so here the punishment for them is that they are paralyzed while continuing on with Dante's punishment of being thrown around by strong blows of wind, and this causes them to be not able to rest. And the paralyzation creates this situation where they're unable to fight or kind of recover from the full blows, and the winds are symbolized the restlessness of people led by the desire for fleshly pleasures. So yeah, you can see that here. And to defeat this level, or to pass this level, you need to defeat all 3 of them.
So for the third circle, it is gluttony, and we chose Trisha Paytas, Nicholas Perry, and Logan Paul. For Trisha Paytas, we chose her because she has an insatiable appetite, she overindulges it with mukbangs. Same with Nicholas Perry, who's also known as Nikado Avocado. And also for Logan Paul, since he overindulges in social media, and he can't get enough of trying to reach fame. So for their punishment, we decided that they're laying in vile slush, which is the original punishment, but we also changed it so that they're forced to eat the vile slush, which is just gonna have a cycle of constant nausea, and then once they have the nausea, like, they throw it back up, creating, like, more vial to lie in. And they're also guided by Cerberus, the three-headed dog, which is a mythological Greek creature who originally guards, like, the gates of hell. But in this case, is guarding the people and gluttony. So for our next circle, we have greed. Basically, we chose Brian Lee, also known as Rice Gum, because his YouTube channel is literally him flexing on other people and buying a lot of, like, rich items, like and brand items. So for his punishment, originally Dante had them pushing, like, great weights with their chest, which symbolized, like, their selfish drive for fortune during their lifetime. But we also added that as in addition to having to push the great weights, they're forced to wear, like, clothing lined with precious metals like gold or diamonds, because it will weigh them down considerably as they push the weights for eternity, making their punishment worse. And they're also guarded by Pluto, which is the Roman god for death or the underworld. So next we have the fifth circle, which is anger. And basically it holds the wrathful and the sullen. Wrathful are people who spent their life being angry, and then the sullen are people who spent their life in, like, suppressed anger. So, like, they didn't actually, like, physically have any outburst or anything. So for our modern residents, we chose Mel Gibson and Stephen Cryer. So Mel Gibson is, like, known for his, like, angry outbursts, and he was always having, like, a lot of, like, scandals regarding his, like, anger issues. And then Stephen Cryer is a YouTuber he's part of a YouTube channel, like, documenting, like, his various freakouts and, like, anger freakouts. And so basically their punishment is that for Sullen we chose Matthew Musto, also known as Black Bear, because most of his songs consist of, like, him, like, pitifully, like, kind of, like, self-pitying himself, like, about how, like, girls have done him wrong, or, like, yeah. And so for the wrathful, they're forced to fight on the river Styx for eternity with each other, which is why I drew them fighting each other. And then for the sullen, they're forced to forever, like, drown under the river Styx, because it's like to appear like they're sunken, just like as they were sullen for the rest of their life, for their whole, like, previous life.
Okay, so this is the sixth circle, and here the residents are the heretics, and heretics are basically anyone who practices heresy. And heresy is any belief or theory that has a really big difference or is, like, changed from the regular beliefs or customs within a church or religious organization. So in this case would be Christianity. So you see Joseph Smith, Maharishi Mahesh, and Ron Hubbard, or L. Ron Hubbard. And Joseph Smith he was the American religious leader, and he founded Mormonism and the Latter-day Saint movement, and also published the Book of Mormon. And Maharishi Mahesh Yogi is an Indian man who developed the transcendental meditation technique and became the leader of the organization that it created. And you see, lastly, L. Ron Hubbard, and he wrote the book Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health, and here he's basically the founder of Scientology. So yeah, they're all kind of like heretics, and the punishment here is that they are condemned into eternity in flaming tombs, and have inside the tombs have the Bible written all over them. Well, the Bible, like the passage or the Bible verses, and the Bible doesn't burn, but basically everything else does. And to pass this level, you have to go through the tomb, and in the tomb you kind of have to fight the three of them and win. Okay, so in the seventh circle, it kind of represents violence, but it's divided into 3 rings: the outer, middle, and inner ring. So the outer ring consists of the murderers and like the people who were violent towards others and their property. So here that you can see Adolf Hitler, because obviously he was violent and took many lives of people during the Holocaust, and Osama bin Laden, because he was a terrorist and was responsible for many violent acts towards the United States, such as the 2001 9/11 attack on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon, and the suicide bombing of the U.S. warship Cole. So their punishment is that they sink into a river of boiling blood and fire, and at the same time of this, because of their violent acts towards each other and like murders, they stab each other in this little river of blood and fire. And in the middle ring, you can see the people that committed suicide. So here you can see R. Bud Dwyer, and he was the Pennsylvania state treasurer of the Commonwealth, and he served from 1971 to 1981, and his suicide was live. And his punishment is that, or the punishment of the people in the middle ring, is that their souls are trapped in trees while they watch their old bodies that they committed suicide in, and they can't move, and they're tortured to the point of death by harpies, and they're never able to like return to their bodies. And while this happens, they just watch their past body constantly decay in the form of their previous suicide. And basically harpies are these like creatures, mythological creatures, and it's a rapacious monster, and it has like a woman's head in the body of a bird, and has wings and claws, and they kind of just torment the people that did wrong, carrying souls to the underworld, and they have a really bad smell and they look really ugly. So yeah, they're tortured by these people, or they're tortured by the harpies, and they kind of just can't do anything about it because they can't move. And in the inner ring is the blasphemers and the sodomites, but here you can see the sodomites, so that you can see Oscar Wilde and James Charles, and they both were like, okay, so Oscar Wilde was charged of sodomy and was placed in prison, and James Charles is open about his actions that involve sodomy. So yeah, and their punishment is that they're rained upon by fire, so they constantly get burned. Okay, so this is the 8th circle, and it includes all the fraudulent. So this one's divided into 10 little grids, so it like kind of just shows each bolgia. So in each one, like 1 has the panders and seducers, 2 is the flatterers, 3 is the guilty of simony or simony, I don't know how to say it. 4 is the sorcerers and the false prophets. 5 is the corrupt politicians. 6 is the hypocrites. 7 is the thieves. 8 is the evil counselors and advisors. And 9 is the divisive individuals. And 10 is the falsifiers. And this includes like alchemists, pre-jurors, and like counterfeits. So, and each little bolgia has their own different punishment. So in 1, you see Hugh Hefner, because he's kind of like a pander. And the punishment for the panders and the seducers are that they have to run back and forth away from whipping demons. So like basically these demons try to hit them with whips, and like they have to escape. And this like is like because in their life they were basically the ones that have all the power, and like here they're the ones running away, and that they don't have the power to like, I guess, like fight the demons, because it's like they'll obviously lose. And in addition, like for this level, you're also like your player is chased by the demons, so you have to escape their whips, and the panders and the seducers, because they can try and distract you into basically getting whipped by the demon. And in the second one, they're the flatterers. So here there's Jimmy Fallon, and he's basically like a flatterer, and the punishment is that they're buried and covered in excrement. And here, to pass this Bolgia. Since they're like buried in this, you can't really see them, but like the goal is to like be able to get through this like little like, I guess, land of excrement, and like since you can't see them, they'll try, the flatterers that are buried inside are going to try and grab and drag you down into it, so you have to avoid that. And the third Bolgia is the guilty of the simony, and here has Brian Murray, and the punishment for this one is that they're flipped upside down and buried in holes, and like they're kind of like hanging. They're kind of like hanging by the legs in these like holes, or kind of floating, and their feet like are on fire, but like below their head of like where it's hanging, there's also like boiling blood and fire, so they can't really escape even if they're able to like drop down into it. So yeah. And in the fifth one, it has a corrupt the fourth one has a it's the sorcerers and the false prophets. So here you can see like Harold camping because he was predicting the end, and he like causes mass suicide thing. So basically like he was a false prophet, and the punishment for this is that the heads of the sorcerers and like the false prophets are twisted backwards, so they can't see anything in front of them, only behind them, since they always like in their life try to predict the future. And in addition to this, like their eyes are also very like foggy, so they can't really see anything really behind them either. Like when they're looking, they really can't see much, and they're forced to walk down these paths, and like on the path there's like these little like knives that are sticking up and like little fires, so like they have to avoid that, but they really can't because they can't see, so they're like constantly getting stabbed and burned. Okay, so in the fifth one, it has a corrupt politician. So you see Richard Nixon, and basically he's a corrupt politician because of like his lies with the Watergate scandal, and like the representation like as a president, and like lying and being corrupt. So the punishment for this is that they are like in boiling pitch, and they're poked by demons, like little pitchfork things by demons, and like these pitchforks are like heated up, so they're getting stabbed and like burned, and they're also like in this boiling thing, so they're constantly bleeding, so they're basically like boiling in their own blood too. Okay, so in the sixth one, it has the hypocrites. So here there's George Orwell, and George Orwell is kind of a hypocrite because he wrote this book called Animal Farm, which like kind of like talked about communism and how he was against all these things, but later on it was revealed that he actually like changed sides sort of, and like his views changed, and like it wasn't really this, so it's kind of like he's seen as like a hypocrite. So so the people that are like hypocrites are forced to wear lead mantles and to walk in circles, and the robes that they wear are like really pretty and like pink, but they're like weighted with lead, so like it drags them down, and the weight of the lead is kind of like dragging them with their sins because they can never like let go of this, and like they can't stop, because if they do stop, they have to like, well, the demons that are like watching them basically like torture them even more, so yeah, they can't stop. The seventh one has the thieves. So you can see Bernard Madoff, and he's kind of like a well-known thief, and the punishment for thieves is that they're in a snake pit because they're thieves, so like they're like snakes, and like and then like, so they're like in this snake pit, and like half of them are little snakes, like their souls are within snakes, and they can only become human again by stealing it from the other half that are humans with biting them, and they constantly like want to find a place to put their soul, and like because they don't want to be in the snake, because when they're in the snake's body, like they're like, it feels like burning to them, so yeah, they have to like keep stealing the body from each other, so because they were thieves. Okay, and Bolgia 8 has the evil counselors and the advisors, and here you can see, like, for example, Heinrich Himmler, and he was one of Hitler's advisors, so he kind of, like, was a cause of the whole, like, Holocaust thing, and, like, all of that because he was an advisor, and, like, he basically was, like, giving him bad advice of, like, ideas of how to take care of anything as a leader and, like, doing the right thing, because it was, like, the Holocaust, and, like, they have tongues, like, their true nature is basically concealed in flames shaped like tongues, and, like, they stand in these and get burned. And then the 9th, Bolgia is a devised individual, so here there's Daniel Keem, and, like, he's better known as Keemstar, and so to pass all these levels, I don't know if I said this already, but, like, you have to, like, get through each one, and but the level, like, with Hitler's advisor, you have to be able to get through the fire without him grabbing you and dragging you inside the tongue fire thing. Anyways, for 9, the sowers, they basically walk in circles, and they're sliced in half when they reach the beginning, and they re-heal as they walk again, and they're cut in half every time they finish the circle. And they can't slow the process, because the slower they walk, the more they get sliced up on the way back. Like, they have to walk the circle in, like, a specific amount of time, because they're cut in half at the beginning, but, like, if they go beyond a certain point, they get sliced more into pieces. And the 10th one has Isaac Newton, and he was an alchemist. And the punishment for alchemists are basically, they have, like, bad diseases, like leprosy, madness, fevers, plagues, boils, and, like, they're basically just, like, very, like, covered in diseases. And in falsifiers, there's actually many types. Like, there's the types that are just, like the people that have, like, false beliefs, like the alchemists, and then there's, like, the counterfeits of other people, like people who, like, pretend to be someone else. Like, their punishment is that they turn on each other like animals. And people who are false, like, of money, they have to, like, mingle with the counterfeits of people. And to get through all these, you have to, like, go through each one. And for the 10th one, you have to get through the level without having any of the falsifiers with the diseases touch you, because they spread their, like, leprosy or, like, diseases to you.
So for the last circle, we have treachery. Basically, it's split into, like, 4 categories in order of, like least treachery to, like, worst treachery. So the round 1 is treachery against traitors to kindred, and then the second round is traitors to country. The third one is traitors to guests, and then the last one and the worst one is traitors to benefactors. So for round 1, traitors to kindred, we chose Chris Benoit, who is basically a kind of popular wrestler or, like, a fighter. And basically he went crazy and, like, killed his family. He choked his son and killed his wife. So he's a traitor to his kindred, his family. And then the next person, traitors to country, is Edward Snowden, because he acted as a whistleblower, and he originally worked for the NSA, but then he leaked sensitive information to, like, the general public, and then, like, fled. So he's a traitor to America. And for the round 3, I chose Jason Colton, traitors to guests, because basically it was, like, a small case, but he was a murderer. He killed his guest. He was, like, an Airbnb host that murdered his guest. And then for the last and worst one, traitors to benefactors, I chose, like, a fictional character, Theon Greyjoy. He's from Game of Thrones. Basically, the story goes that the Stark family, he grew up with the Stark family, and, like, it kind of, like, they were, like, his benefactors in a way, because, like, they gave him, like, a home and stuff like that, but then, he betrayed them, and eventually led to the Stark family, like, losing the war, and then a lot of them dying. So, all of them are guarded by Satan, and, basically, they're frozen. Like, all of them are frozen, like, symbolizing how they didn't have any love, so it's, like, cold. That's why it's cold. And then they're guarded by Lucifer, and then his wings, like, are, like, always flapping, so, like, it, like, brings a lot of cold wind. So, yeah, that's the last circle, our game. Once the main character passes this last circle, then they basically win. And then the game ends.